Welcome back, everybody. Let me give you an update of where we're at on this. Maybe I can show you where we're at. I went ahead and replaced some of the wires on the tuner, on the push buttons. They were really crumbly. Also replaced the wiring harness that's on the volume and tone controls that goes to the bottom of the radio. I've ordered the grommets that hold the tuner assembly onto the chassis, and I had some rubber grommets for the tuning condensers, so I've already had replaced that. So let's flip this up and I'll show you what I've done underneath. Okay, as you remember, I was had just put the filter capacitors in, and so what I ended up doing is, like I said, I started on this side and started replacing the filter or the capacitors and checking the resistors and changing those out as I went. And you know, I'd made the comment about the wires being in good shape. Well, I got to looking at them and feeling of them, and just didn't have a good warm fuzzy feeling about it, you know. So I replaced them. I replaced the wires. All right, Michael, quit laughing at me. You were telling me I was the luckiest guy in the world. Well, I ended up changing the wires. I just didn't feel good about them. The ones I couldn't change, I put some heat shrink on, and so that's the only capacitors I haven't changed are the high voltage ones that are on the output tubes, and those are on order and they should be here tomorrow, matter of fact. I went ahead and put the knockout and put the through the chassis fuse holder in, and I went ahead and knocked this was pushed or rolled, I guess it was, the hole, but it was sticking up, and I wanted a rubber grommet, and so I went ahead and ground that down and put a rubber grommet in, put the UL knot, but I also put a tie wrap there. I've got a grandson that'll be tugging on that, I think. So one of the other things that I've done, I've went ahead and ordered I actually ordered 3 power resistors, and we'll determine exactly which one it is. I've done based upon the current that when we fire this up, what it's going to be. So I went ahead and ordered some 25 watt power resistors, 11 ohm, a 12 ohm, and a 13 ohm. So between those three, I want to drop the voltage from 123-ish down to 115, which was what it was rated at. And I went ahead and wired everything up as it would be for if I wasn't putting the resistor in for test purposes, and I'll keep the voltage down with the variac. But what I'm planning on doing is, since there's a lot of room in the wooden cabinet, is I'm going to come right out here on the front part of this chassis. I'm going to drill a couple of holes, or maybe one, and bring the power from the switch, from the switch here. I'm going to bring it out to the resistor. I'll heat shrink it so there won't be any voltages outside here, and then take it back inside here, and then I'll attach the metal power resistor to the outside. instead of inside, to allow the heat to be dispersed that way, and it'll also be attached to the chassis, which will dissipate some of the heat also. That'll be coming up later in this part when the parts come. But right now, let's put it on the variac and bring it up slowly and see if I've made any major boo-boos. Everybody remember Crabby and Patty. Here's Patty. She's molting. That means her skin is softening, and she's buried up in the sand once. And here's Crabby. So, the life of a hermit crab, I guess. He's changed shells. I think he's upgraded myself. I think that's a much nicer shell than that one. But that's what they do, is as they grow, they get bigger shells. So you got to make sure you've got shells inside there. So, but that's I think he upgraded there. Not sure. But I thought I'd give you an update on Crabby and Patty there. I've put a fuse in. I've set this back in the cabinet, hooked up the antenna and the speaker, and hadn't got the front on or anything like that, but I'm going to bring it up slowly. Here's something that's interesting. When I pulled the tubes out, I didn't pay any attention, but when I started looking at the tubes, someone had put in a 76 in the place of a 37. I'd never heard of that before, and I really haven't seen anything in writing where that is a substitute. But looking at the specs, the 76 is a little bit higher tube, but as far as current and everything like that, they're about the same. So I'm leaving it in. So we'll see how that works out. It was playing when we pulled it out. So apparently it was, if you guys know anything about it, let me know. So let me put this on a tripod, and so I can get both hands on the wheel, and we'll bring this thing up. Okay, gonna bring this up slowly, and I'll watch the variac, and you guys watch for smoke, the magic smoke come out. But let's turn it on. All right, I've got it set at about 25 volts, and looks like about 200 milliamps. Let me check my camera, make sure we're good. Maybe a little dark, but hopefully not. The reason I've got a light burn out in the overhead here. We'll let this set for a minute or so, and let them form. And let's see, let's run it on up a little bit more. It's going up to about 60 or so. We're looking at about a little less than 300 milliamps. Let me pause this, and we'll let it set for a minute or so. Okay, let's run it on up to about 90-ish. We should start hearing something. I don't see any smoke, smell anything, hear any popping and cracking. We're looking at about, the current's rising right now. It's about 0.55 amps right now, I guess. Yes. All right. Let's see if we get any. I hear a little buzzing action. Current's looking okay. Let's run it up a little more. Let's go up to about 110 volts. All right, the current jumped up to, I'm hearing some sound here, a little over 700 milliamps. Let's go on up to about 115 where it belongs. And that's just shy of 800 milliamps. All right, let's. Oh yeah, we've got some sound here. All right. Oh yeah. I don't even know where that station's at. And it's all I've got is the antenna that's built in. Oh yeah. That's 580 up about 30 miles away. I usually don't get that very well. All right. Let's go on up and see about our 970. That's our local. They've changing the format now, so. Oh yeah. Current looks good. Less than 800 milliamps. This is supposed to pull 110 watts. Let's go on up the band a little bit more and see what we got going here. Fairly quiet. There was me some noise. Okay. Whoop, that didn't sound good. Whoa. That's my local station there. All right. I think that's gonna do pretty good. Now I've got the rubber grommets and the push buttons ordered, and I've sprayed out the volume and tone control with some cleaner, and it cleaned up really well. And so now we've got to work on the power resistor to drop the voltage. That's kind of an experiment because it's not an exact science. It doesn't follow Ohm's law exactly. I'm going to mount that resistor up here on the very front, up in here, in this area, right here on the chassis. Far enough away for little hands, but I'm going to make sure it's not hot. And had somebody ask me, well, what about, somebody getting in there and touching it? Well, these output tubes get very hot also, so on their way in they're going to touch these tubes perhaps. So as long as I keep the electrical hazard down, I think I'll be all right. There's the fuse holder, and let's see if I can. It's got a good sound. Everything's looking good. I think a little bit more cleanup and some odds and ends, it'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, I said I was going to put a power resistor on to drop the line voltage from approximately 123 to 115. Well, I'm pulling 800 milliamps or 0.8 amps. And if you do Ohm's law, E equals I times R. Okay, and then you manipulate that and you say 0.8 I want to go from 123 to 115. That's 8 ohms, or 8 volts. So I got to drop 8 volts. So you say 8 volts divided by 0.8. Well, that gives you 10 ohm resistor. Well, that's in DC circuits. AC is different. Now, there is a formula about yay long that takes into account reactance, because you're dealing with AC and 60 hertz and things like that. It's a little bit more complicated than just straight Ohm's law. So what I did is I had a 10, 11, 12, and a 13 ohm resistor to try. So I put them one by one. Now, here's the other thing. I wanted to drop from 123 volts to 115. Okay. Now, my line voltage today is 118. Now, why would it be 118 today and normally 123? Well, we're in a really cold spell right now. So the grid is being taxed right now, so the voltage is down to 118. So what I've done is I ran the Variac up to 123 volts, and then I experimented by inserting each one of those resistors in until I got 115 volts. Now that's worst case. Variac set on 123, which is higher than my line right now. So I know it gets to 123 here, so that's what I'm shooting for. So anyway, I ended up putting a 13 ohm resistor in, 25 watt. Now I'll be pulling 7-8 watts on this. So I'm using 25 watt. It's approximately 3 times buffer factor just for safety. It's still going to get hot. 8 watts of heat is still going to be hot. So it's mounted to the chassis. It's away. It's up under the transformer. The transformer gets warm anyway, but it'll get less warm because of this resistor. So that's the theory behind that. So let's crank it up and let's see what my line voltage is now. All right, I've set the Variac to 123 volts exactly, and there is the line voltage coming off the radio, 114.7. I think that's where I want it to be. It'll play a lot longer that way.